It's likely you've heard the term master grip thrown around, but without an adequate definition of what it is, how to achieve a master grip, and how to sustain it, most importantly, throughout your entire string of fire or sequence of events. There's not a standardized definition that I'm aware of. There's no doctrinal term master grip, so I'm going to define what it is, and then we're going to jump straight into how to achieve it and some tips on how to keep that master grip solid throughout your entire string of fire. So I'll define the term master grip as that dominant side grip that we get on the handgun that applies the appropriate pressure points, that enables the shooter to maintain control of the gun. It facilitates rapid presentation from the holster to target. It enables proper functioning of the handgun. So generally speaking about the dominant side hand achieving that master grip on the gun, but whenever possible, we always want to have two hands on the gun for better stability control for the follow through. So that master grip ought to also set the foundation for when we later achieve a two-handed grip. Now we'll further state that that master grip begins when we get that initial grip on the gun in the holster, and it must maintain consistency through the entire string of fire, regardless if there's any hiccups such as a slide lock reload or a malfunctions drill. We want to maintain that master grip. It should not be shifting around, so that as soon as you get the gun back into action, you can represent it for a rapid follow-up shot if needed. All right, so now that the definition is out of the way, let's discuss how to actually acquire that master grip, the steps to do that, and also some tips along the way on how you maintain that master grip regardless of what's going on. Before we do that, if that's the first time you've heard an actual definition of the term master grip, go ahead and hit that thumbs up down there. All right, let's jump into how to achieve the master grip. At the foundational level, I will generally sit down and have the students look over my shoulder so they can observe what I'm describing before I walk them through step by step the points of performance for them to achieve a master grip. The first thing I will generally do is have them form a U with their dominant side hand between the thumb and the index or trigger finger. I will describe that web between the fingers is where I want all that energy to be going from the grip of the gun during the cycle of operation straight into the hand. You want to ensure your grip is as high as possible on the backstrap. If there's a Beavertail on the gun, you want to make sure that it is high up into the Beavertail. You want to eliminate any air gap between the web of the hand and the Beavertail or the backstrap. If there is an air gap between the web of the hand and the backstrap of the gun, then it's going to serve as a pivot point and give the gun leverage, so you will experience more muzzle flip than you should when the gun recoils. Next, I'll have the student use their support side hand, their non-dominant hand, to take the cleared handgun and push it firmly into the web of the hand. They form the U, and then they're going to place the backstrap or the Beavertail well up into that web of the hand so that there is no air gap. When you do this, you will see that that soft skin likely kind of pushes up. That is how firm and high you want that grip to be. Now, a point of order here, if the student has very large beefy hands and the web of the hand is starting to encroach to where the operation or the cycling of the slide on the rails is likely going to scuff up or cut their hand, then you want to adjust that just a skoshie bit lower so they don't get slide bite. Generally speaking, that's not an issue for most people. If that is an issue, then you may want to select a gun that has some type of a pronounced Beavertail, because that will ensure that the web of the hand stays well away from the slide. Now that we have the web of the hand placed firmly and as high as possible into the backstrap or Beavertail of the gun, we're going to lock that into place by squeezing firmly with the middle segments of our middle and ring finger, pulling directly through the front strap of the gun to the backstrap, essentially locking that web into the grip. Now it's important to use flat pressure coming straight onto the front strap through the grip, transferring that into the web of the hand. That flat pressure to the rear is going to both keep the gun firmly seated in the web of the hand while also mitigating the tendency to squeeze the fingertips into the side panel of the gun. If you're squeezing with your dominant side fingertips onto the side panel of the grip, then as a right-handed shooter, you will tend to pull your shots to the 9 o'clock, or if you're a left-handed shooter, you're going to tend to pull your shots over to the 3 o'clock. Additionally, by having the middle segment of your middle and ring finger on the front strap, it also opens up sufficient grip space on the side panel of the gun. So when we do achieve that two-handed grip, you have plenty of space on the side of the gun to place your support side hand, get it flat, get as much meat into the game as possible, because that's where you're going to get the friction, hence the stability and the consistency between shots. Now, as you're doing dry or live fire with the gun, be very cognizant of that air gap creeping back in. If you notice that that air gap keeps creeping back in, then immediately fix it until it becomes second nature to grip the gun in such a way that it eliminates that gap. If you just cannot avoid having a gap there for whatever reason, that I encourage you to look at the other video I have. It'll be linked below, that goes through step by step on how to properly select a gun that fits your hand size appropriately. It may be that the gun doesn't fit your hand and you're just not, no matter what you try, going to eliminate enough of that air gap, and you're going to be experiencing significant muzzle flip. Note that so far we're only using the middle and ring finger on the front strap of the gun, pulling the force directly into the web of the hand. We are not invoking any strength with the pinky finger. I want you to lay that pinky finger on the front strap, but not to actively squeeze with the pinky finger as part of your grip strength. The reason I want you to avoid squeezing with the pinky finger is because that tends to invoke a low and left shot group with a right-handed shooter, or for the left-handed shooters, you may be experiencing a low and right shot group. If you currently use your pinky finger and you're dead on and you don't have issues with throwing your shots low left or low right if you're a lefty, then by all means continue to do what you're doing because it's working for you. For anybody else who is experiencing a good shot group and it tends to trend to the low left if you're a right-handed shooter, then I would encourage you to the next range session to consciously relax that pinky finger and see if that helps to eliminate that deviation to the low left. Others may disagree, but I do not find the arguments compelling that you cannot train yourself to isolate the pinky finger from the rest of the grip strength, the grip pressures, while also activating the trigger during trigger squeeze. The rationale you'll often hear is that when you bend your trigger finger, you will automatically tense up the rest of your grip through sympathetic movement of the muscles. Don't sell yourself short. Neuroplasticity is a thing, and with deliberate practice over time, the neural pathways of choice will be what you execute under stress. As a side note, I'm only using visible lasers in this video to help illustrate how grip pressures can have an adverse effect on your point of impact. I'm not advocating that you go out and get a visible laser for your defensive handgun. In my experience, people tend to be much quicker at target acquisition and rapid engagement when they use kinesthetics and proprioception, and through neural conditioning, or what we'll refer to as muscle memory, they're pushing the sights of the gun directly into what they're looking at, as opposed to trying to find the laser on the target. Let's move on. Next, let's discuss the placement of the strong side thumb. Note that the strong side thumb is parallel to the side panel of the grip. If the gun isn't sized properly to fit your hand, and if you are reaching around with your trigger finger to activate the trigger, then what you may notice is that the base of this thumb knuckle will then end up shifting behind the grip where the web of the hand ought to be. This typically results in two things happening. When the gun recoils, the pressure against the base of the thumb knuckle generally loosens the grip and allows the gun to shift around in your hand. And by the end of the practice session, you have a little hot spot where that knuckle is. The sore thumb knuckle is only a minor annoyance. It's the inconsistency in the grip that is of concern here. To shoot consistent, we must be consistent, especially with the grip and the grip pressures. So the essential element we're looking for here with your dominant side thumb is that base knuckle is off to the side, not where the web of the hand ought to be. If you're going to achieve a two-handed grip, then we're going to flag that thumb upward, which opens up all this grip panel for your support hand to fit into. If we're going to shoot one-handed, then there's different schools of thought of flagging the thumb up versus curling it down versus just keeping it horizontal and relaxed. What I will say is try all three of them. That will be the topic of a separate video on one-handed shooting techniques. So far, we've covered ensuring that there is no gap between the web of the hand and the backstrap or the beavertail, using the middle segments of the middle and ring fingers only, pulling flat pressure directly into the front strap, keeping the grip cemented solidly into the web of the hand, not using the pinky finger, and keeping the thumb off to the side of the gun. The last thing we need to discuss is what to do with the trigger finger as part of the master grip. I like to cover this in relation to the rule or the adage that we never ever have the finger in or near the trigger guard during position 1, 2, or 3 of the draw stroke. We'll cover the draw stroke ad nauseum in a separate video, but for context, so you understand where I'm going with this, when we're acquiring that master grip at the holster, we are pressing the web of the hand high into the back strap of the grip. We're placing the flat portions of the middle segment of the middle and ring finger on the front strap, and our trigger finger should be extended on the outside of the holster. It should be a physical impossibility to touch the trigger while the gun is in the holster, because a quality holster should encompass the entire trigger guard. Once we withdraw the gun from the holster at position 2, your finger should naturally lay on the frame of the slide. We call that a high index. When we take and drop that elbow to the side and it pivots the gun naturally up to the support hand that's waiting high up near the chest or the sternum, that's where we form our two-handed grip if we're going to achieve a two-handed grip. Now note that at no time at position 1, 2, or 3 was my finger anywhere near the trigger or trigger guard. It is not until we have left position 3 and we're extending out to position 4 or full extension that our finger should go into the trigger guard, put pressure against the trigger, hold it at the wall. Once we have confirmed our sights, then smoothly finish off the trigger squeeze, sending that round down range. We maintain contact with the trigger the best we can through the entire string of fire. And once we are leaving position 4, heading back to position 3, that finger must instinctively come out of the trigger guard and be high indexed on the frame or slide before you make it back to position 3. As mentioned before, I want your grip pressures to remain consistent through the entire string of fire. From the time you put your hand on the gun in the holster, that dominant side grip should not change. You do not tighten it at any point. Think of the trigger finger as a totally separate organ operating independently from the grip strength. If you end up tightening up your grip strength as part of the shot process as you're finishing off the pressure on the trigger, then you're likely going to be shanking your shot to the 6 o'clock, or if you're squeezing with the fingertips or one of those other wonky grip pressures we discussed, you'll be having some kind of effect on the round or the point of impact. Your sights may be dead on target, but then you're going to squeeze the sights out of alignment at the last moment. You want to avoid that through consistency. On the topic of grip consistency, this also includes if you have any hiccups with the string of fire. If you have a slide lock reload or a malfunction drill to execute, maintain that master grip the best you can. The issue that most people will run into is that their dominant side thumb is not long enough to reach the slide lock or the magazine release. Therefore, if they use the dominant side thumb, it shifts the entire grip around. The web is no longer firmly seated or centered into the backstrap or the beavertail, and in great stress, they fail to recenter things and reacquire that grip because time is of the essence, and then their follow-up string of fire ends up being loosey-goosey all over the place. To alleviate this issue, I recommend if your dominant side thumb cannot reach the controls on the support side of the gun without shifting or losing that master grip, I recommend using your support side thumb to run the controls on the support side of the gun. That will enable most people to maintain the web of the hand centered firmly into the backstrap or the beavertail and not give up the master grip. I have other videos that detail the thought process and how to do malfunctions and reloads without losing the master grip. you can check those out. They're linked below. So there you have it, folks. That's how I teach people to establish that master grip with their dominant side hand, and most importantly, how to maintain the master grip through that entire sequence of events from start to finish, from the time it leaves the holster to you return it to the holster. If that's the first time you've heard it described in such detail, do me a favor and go ahead and hit that like, subscribe if you haven't already. Most importantly, share this video with others in your community so that the channel grows and the word gets out on how to use these techniques effectively. And if you have time remaining today, there's nothing hot burning on your agenda list, stick around for the next video where we're going to incorporate the actions of the support hand for the two-handed grip. Also discuss how to lock out that support side wrist, which will minimize how much your muzzle flips up during recoil, because the flatter your gun can shoot, the quicker you can reacquire your sights for those follow-up shots during that string of fire. So I'll either see you over there in that next video, and if you don't have time for that, then as always, until next time, God bless you and stay safe.